Thanks for tuning in to a Saturday night edition as we take a look once again at another NASCAR Cup Series race as far as the starting lineup report. And this one is for the Coke 600, of course, for actually one of the big races of the season. The Charlotte Motor Speedway has turned into a really good track with the next-gen car, so we should have a good race tomorrow. The weather does appear to be in good shape. There's going to be some fog, definitely a lot of humidity therefore, but it's possible we might be. Now look, it's still early. We're almost 24 hours away from the start of the race, about 21 and a half hours approximately. So check the weather, whatever time during the day you want to. You might even want to check it several times just to update it, but hopefully the rain will stay away. I mean, it doesn't look like, even if it does rain, it's gonna rain for long. So we just got to keep our fingers crossed because you just never know. All right, so hopefully CJ Raduna is going to rejoin me on Tuesday. He's been on vacation. That's the reason why we did not have a show this week. Hopefully you checked out the on-demand portion of our show that we did live a week from Tuesday, a week before Tuesday. So last week we did the show a whole, 10 days, 12 days early before CJ went on vacation. We have a link in the description of this video if you want to check it out. So we go in depth like we do on all of our races. So you can check that out. The only thing we didn't have on that show were odds. We still gave our picks. We went through all the drivers' past performances, everything else that was important. Watkins Glen was over. All-Star race has nothing to do, of course, with how they're going to race this week in a points race. So again, you can check that out. And then we'll have a lot more to talk about regarding Kyle Busch for sure when CJ and I get together. Hopefully it should be Tuesday. And that's our usual day, Tuesday, 4 o'clock Eastern, right here on Proline TV. Okay, so let's get with it. Let's first of all take a look at the starting lineup. Now, you should realize by now that the starting lineup is based at this point, because of the rain out, it is based on their metrics. I'm not going to go with that. We've done it before. I'm not a big fan of it. Some of it is okay. Some of it's ridiculous. But whatever, it is what it is. So everybody has to deal with it. And one of the reasons why I don't agree with it is because a situation like this, they're coming from a road course. So they're using the road course and, how they fared as far as where they placed as part of the metrics. And it's like, come on. I mean, they don't even race at road courses very often. And you're going to use that for the Coke 600 for a 1.5 mile tri-oval, whatever. Like I said, let's not get into it. It is what it is. All right. And this is really a bummer too, because as we talked about on the show last week, the qualifying was going to be really important for this race. Now, sometimes it's not, and sometimes it is. And this was just one of those circumstances which it was important, because if you looked at past COVID, 21 to 25, obviously most of the next gen, all of the next gen, it was really important to gauge, because the winner of the race usually came from the manufacturer that did really well, that did the best in qualifying and practice. And so, and of course, the driver has a lot to do with that. But manufacturer, really, that was the important thing. So we don't have that. It was going to be a really important tool for us, and we don't have it. And we're not going to use the metrics of qualifying in our handicapping, so we just have to live with it. There are some things we could work on. Again, I don't know if we can do it in this situation based on, again, no qualifying, but remember there was a rain out just a few years ago and Ryan Blaney won. 6 of the last 12 winners, so we are going to go back pre-COVID, pre-next gen. So I think you should I think this is fair, but I think what this is going to tell you is that it doesn't really matter if you do end up inside the top 12 or not in your starting position, dating back to the last 12 races. 6 of the last 12 winners started outside the top 10. And those positions included 17th, 19th, 22nd, and last year's Ross Chastain, who started 40th because he wrecked in practice. So he didn't even get to really practice. Well, he did. He wrecked. Starts 40th and wins the race. Okay. But, is that a surprise really at the longest race of the season when, hey, you get those extra laps? And we see how a lot of times drivers steal races with a lot less laps. So maybe it shouldn't have been a big surprise, but still, 40th is 40th. Let's see. 3 of the last 12 winners started from the pole. Can't really use that much here, though. I really don't know if Tyler Reddick deserved to be on the pole or not. Now, how about this one? 8 straight different winners for the Coke 600. 8 straight. All right. So what this means is if you want to use this trend, you don't have to, obviously, but if you want to use it, and we've used it twice this year, same situation, different tracks, different number, but one of them stayed true to the trend, the other did not. So it's 50-50 right now. 8 different Coke 600 winners, last 8. All right. So if your name is on this list and you want to use the trend, you will not be picking the following drivers to win: Ross Chastain, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski. And really that's it, because the other 2 drivers are no longer in the series, one being Martin Truex Jr. and the other being Kyle. No current driver has won this race twice. How about that? So not only do you have the trend I just mentioned, but if you've already won and you're not one of the last 8, well, you also haven't won this race more than once. So in actuality, I mean, if you think about it, a lot of the drivers today are pretty young. So, and there's a good amount of them that have been in this series less than 8 years. So it does make sense that we've had 8 different winners of the Coke 600, and no current drivers out there on Sunday have won the race twice. Okay. So that's the trend. Just quickly, our picks from a week and a half. CJ went with Byron as his top pick, Brad Keselowski as his second pick, and yes, Kyle Busch as his third pick. I went with Chase Elliott, Chase Briscoe, and Daniel Suarez as my long shot. Okay. Let's move on. Here's the starting lineup again, and then let's move on so you can see the rest of it, just in case you didn't know. Now, which drivers are getting the shaft? Okay. Well, I probably look at, you got Chase Elliott has to start 16th, Bell has to start 17th, Larson 18th, Hocevar 23rd, Chastain 27th, Byron 31st. Yeah, those drivers are the ones that really wish they could have. I mean, Logano definitely using their 33rd. Those are the drivers that really wish they had a fair chance to qualify at today's race. Now, let's pop up practice speeds and why they're important. Well, one of the reasons they're important is because we don't have any qualifying speeds to go on. So at least we have something. Okay, it could have been worse. We could have had nothing. Just like a couple of years ago when Blaney won. We have nothing. I mean, we have something. All right. Now, as we do this, okay, let's just take a look. You got these are the top 16, and then here are the bottom. Okay. And just taking a quick observation. All right. Corey Heim, the very, very strong 5th. Matter of fact, if you look at it, you have Stenhouse, McDowell, Heim, Jones, and Berry. Half of the starting 10 in the race, or I should say that, half of the top 10 in practice are not the norm. So that's good. Makes it a little bit harder, handicapping, but it's okay. It's good. Now, as you can see, we go down the line here. Some of the drivers that did not have a good day today, notable drivers: Tyler Reddick starts 24th. Logano 29th. Keselowski 32nd. Elliott 35th. So those would be the drivers who had the slowest and most disappointing practice sessions today. All right. Oh, and this is important. Remember, I talked about manufacturers needing to be really good in practice and really good in qualifying. And the best one, if there was a clear top manufacturer, then I would have jumped all over those cars, those drivers, and that's it. But I can't really do that now without qualifying. But what I can do is still side a little bit with Chevy because they did have the top three. But keep in mind, we are talking about, besides Hocevar, who just won his first race, we're talking about a couple of long shots in here. So it's not like we've got the 300 drivers, 3 of the 400 drivers in the top three. And Toyota has done pretty well at the track, as you know, if you take a look at it. I mean, just Chevy's been really good. Toyota's been fine. And look, Toyota, sure, they didn't have a driver in the top four, but they had 4 of the next 5 after that. So I'm just going to give Chevy a little bit of an edge, but really just a little bit. All right. Let's now pop up the odds. Here we go. We're going to go starting with the top 10. All right. And I got to tell you, I'm going to get into the fantasy portion a little bit later on. I'm going to go over my DFS picks and my bargains. There's some really good bargains this week. Really, really good bargains. And I can't take them all. So I certainly hope that you'll be able to take advantage of some of them, whoever you pick. And so there's just a good variety of drivers. Matter of fact, when you take a look at the contenders list that I'm going to pop up in just a minute, it's the most I've had so far since we've been doing this year, this style, this format. All right. So Reddick at 5-1. He's not the favorite, but he's the second favorite. And I kind of get it. He's had a lot of wins. He's the best driver right now this year. But there are some issues. He's 5-1. That is a low number, okay, for a driver who has yet to win a race at Charlotte. He's got a good record at Charlotte. He's got 5 top 10s out of 7. His average finish is 10.3. 2 top 5s. But recently, if you take a look at it, last year, at the very least, 26th overall, and he was 5th fastest in practice. A lot slower today, 24th. So I'm a little bit concerned there. But we know he's having a monster year, and he would like nothing better than to win one of the biggest races of the season with as good as the Reddick team is doing. But you're getting no value at 5-1. There's tons of options out there. Just can't take these short drivers this week. There's only 2 of them. We'll get to the second one in a little bit. Now, Ty Gibbs, at least I'm getting more than double. And so if I'm taking a pick between the 2 of them, I'm taking Gibbs. I'd much rather get 12-1 than 5-1, especially because Gibbs is having a nice season. And if you look at his average here, he's been in the Cup car 3 times. Last year, did not have a good finish, even though he started 7th and was 2nd fastest in practice. So that's a little bit of a concern. He was 6th in 2024 from the pole, led 74 laps. That was a good year. 5th in practice. Not very good his first year, but I'm not really concerned about that. So the last couple of years, he's been fast here, either on Saturday or Sunday. And so that's good. Now, I'm comparing him to Reddick. Okay, so that's one thing. But just like I said with Reddick, I'm going to kind of say with Gibbs, I just think there's other options out there. But, what you have here, look, I think Gibbs is a good contender. I do. I think if you want him, you like him, you take him. I got no problem with that. But me personally, I just got other options. And I'm a little bit concerned with the fact that his average starting position is 9th in the 3 races, and his average finish is 18.7. I don't like that, but he's a better driver this year, a different driver. The whole team is. And that's the reason why I prefer Gibbs over Reddick tomorrow. And he also is very strong at this track at O'Reilly. Gibbs has 4 O'Reilly races, all of them top 10s, 3 of them top 5s, and a runner-up. He's never won here, though, in either series. But he's a solid contender, no doubt. And he's going to be in a good position to lead some early laps. So, and of course, that's another thing that you'll have to take into consideration when you're putting your fantasy team together. All right, SVG. Now look at that number with SVG, 350 to 1. How on earth is SVG 350 to 1? Really? Now, the thing that I'm disappointed with is that I was hoping SVG was going to be starting in the 20s or the 30s even, because SVG would have been a really good fantasy play. He's raced here twice. He was 14th last year, starting 30th, and it was 28th in 2024 when he started 36th. Okay, so his average start, 33rd. His average finish, 21st. You're getting 12 spots. But you're not going to gain much here, which is why I can't make him a really good fantasy play unless I really believe he's going to lead laps and he's going to have a really good day. Now, it's one thing to start from the 30s and get yourself into the 20s or the teens. That's one thing. But getting yourself in the top 5, that's completely different, especially since the only thing we have going with SVG is his 25th practice speed. He didn't earn the 3rd. All right, so that's disappointing. That's why he's 350 to 1. But, man, if you've got money in your account, put a buck on him. Why not? I mean, crazier things have happened. What happened last year with Chastain? You can steal wins. And he's starting 3rd. All right, McDowell's next. And McDowell definitely, matter of fact, the next 3 drivers you have to take in serious consideration, either in your picks, fantasy, whatever. McDowell, coming off a very strong runner-up to SVG at Watkins Glen, so he's in a really good frame of mind. Plus, he's coming to a track in the Cup Series where he's had a lot of experience, but in the next gen, he's raced 4 times. He's been in the top 10 twice. That's pretty good for McDowell. This is not a super speedway. This is in Talladega and Daytona. So this is a legitimate 1.5-mile racetrack, so that's strong. And what's also good is that, again, not only is he getting you're 4th, you were 2nd at Watkins Glen, you're getting a gift being in the top 4 to start the race, but he practiced 3rd. He was the 3rd fastest driver. And the last 2 years, his practice speeds have been 10th ranked and 33rd ranked. And in those finishes, he has results of 7th and 16th. Now he's going to be 4th, which is probably the fastest. I haven't looked at the other 2, so I can't say for sure, but it might be the fastest he's ever run here in practice. So he's a very strong pick either way. Definitely taking him at 66 to 1. That's a given. And as far as fantasy, you have to put him in consideration. We'll get into that in a little bit. And then you have Chase Briscoe, who, as I mentioned, was one of my picks. And I still feel strongly about Briscoe in this race. He is now starting to look like the driver we thought we would have seen earlier in the year after the big first year last year with Joe Gibbs. So, and keep in mind, with Joe Gibbs, and the only time that he came here with the team last year, he finished 3rd from the pole. And he had the 23rd fastest practice run that day or that weekend, which was not very good. And here he's going to get the 5th position, and yet he was 15th fastest in practice. So he was faster in practice today than he was last year when he finished 3rd. and you're getting a very solid 12-1. So again, this is why I was saying with Gibbs, I would take him with Reddick because I'm getting much better value, but I've got other drivers I'm interested in, and these two also at 12-1 are two drivers that I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Briscoe. I'm still going to go with him. I've already taken him, of course, and I'm going with Blaney as well. So with Blaney, what I'm really excited about, of course, as a fan, as you know, but the fact is that, you know, I, as a fan, I think one of the things, and this is also important when you're handicapping, maybe it takes you a while. It took me a while, and that is to figure out the best times when you can. Well, first of all, you should never be a homer when you're a handicapper, never, and that takes years of figuring it out. It's not easy because even this late in my career or just my life as a fan, I have to constantly work at it and convince myself. But I think, of course, I've been doing it for so long that I'm already in that mode. But I still need to get like a little bit of like, you know, like, is he getting respected by the odds makers? You know, how's everybody else feel about it? That sort of thing. Not that, hey, you know what? If I think he's a really good bargain on any given week and nobody's talking about him, well, I'm still going to go with him. You just have to go with your gut. This is what experience, and that's what it all comes with experience. But I will say this, and when if you are handicapping your favorite driver, either with gambling or fantasy, the best thing to do is because this is what I do with Blaney is I just bet him every week. This way I've always got him. So it doesn't really interfere, really, because I've always got money on him. I mean, fantasy, that's different, of course. And when I'm sitting here giving analysis, that's different. But that's the other thing, is that I've also learned, now this is different, say, if you don't have a show, but for me, I have to have respect. And I'm not going to garner any respect if I'm going to pick my favorite driver when he doesn't deserve to be chosen. So I think I've done a really good job of that. And again, it takes a long time, but this is one of those situations where I just kind of feel it, because you have to take advantage of those times when you feel it, because as a fan, you follow that one driver or that one team more than any other team. So you have a leg up on a 99% of other handicappers or anybody that's doing fantasy for that sport, because you know more about that team or that driver than anybody else does, except fellow fans. And that's kind of the way I feel. And I've said this before with Ryan. Matter of fact, we just talked about it a few weeks ago, where I was like, I'm not taking Ryan. I think it was at Talladega, maybe. I said, I'm not taking him because he hasn't had any sort of success there lately. And sure enough, he had another wreck. So if you've been following this show with me and on, whether it's on this channel or whatever channel, you know that I'm not going to homerize it with Ryan Blaney in NASCAR. But I like him this week. I like the fact that he's starting fourth. Again, I did not pick him on the show last week on Tuesday. And CJ didn't pick him either, because he's been very inconsistent here. In his 4 next-gen starts, he's been in a wreck 3 times, and he's got the win I spoke about in 2023 when he got the starting position was 8th, and he led 163 laps. That was the second best starting position he's ever had there. Here, he now gets a better position, and the 4th practice speed is everything, because Ryan Blaney has shown in the past, and really majority of Ryan Blaney's races, he's not going to have a great Saturday. That's just the way it is for Ryan Blaney. He's not a driver that needs to qualify well, needs to have a great practice run. You know, they know how to make the necessary moves during the race, get the car ready, work on it, and second half of the race, here comes Ryan Blaney, and he can take over and dominate or be in position for a win. Well, it's a bonus whenever he qualifies or practices well. So as soon as I saw the 4th place finish in practice, I was all over it, considering, of course, that he also won here just a few years ago. I also like the kind of the way he's been going the last few races. So because he can get into ruts, he's like any other driver. He can have big hot streaks, bad streaks, and more so. I think Ryan is a lot more streaky than most drivers. And so not too long ago, he was in a little bit of a rut, but now he's kind of getting out of it. So I can see him having a really good day tomorrow. And the other thing I really like about Blaney is he's 12-1. Okay, so normally Blaney's one of those drivers that's getting 8-1, 6-1, especially if there's only one session and he's fourth. So I'm kind of surprised he's 12-1. But I think that's something that you might want to take advantage of. Now, I think he is a little bit more of a gamble in fantasy. So even for me, and we'll get into fantasy in a minute with the DFS teams I put together, the drivers, I still am not 100% sure that even though he's in there, that I'm going to stick with it. So I still got some time to think about it. Okay. Anyway, if you want to take a look also at just the last couple of years, the 2 years leading up to his win that he had Rex in, he practiced 19th last year. That was his rank, 17th in 2024. So he did not have good practice runs there. Nothing great as qualifying as well. And he had Rex. And again, remember, the only win he had, there was no practice and no qualifying. We did have practice today, but we also didn't have qualifying. So maybe Ryan Blaney might have something going at Charlotte at the Coke 600 whenever the qualifying run is rained out. All right, next up, let's go to, we're not going to talk much about Buescher. I don't think Buescher's a good play this week. He has nothing going on here except the only thing to like about Chris Buescher is he's having a good season. Other than that, he does not have anything good regarding the data that I see either in previous years or today. Austin Cindric, he gets a good starting position, but he is not good here in fantasy. Average start 14.5, average finish 29th. And his practice run was 13th. So again, don't see anything there. Austin Dillon, though, he is someone I would definitely consider for both fantasy and for your pick. Dillon, look, he had a tire issue today. So we really don't have any idea what kind of speeds he could have put out there. So he ended up 30th, I think it was. And so I'm willing to give him a pass on that. But Dillon is definitely, if you take a look at his history at this track, he's like hit or miss. He's like, okay, yeah, he comes from nowhere and has a really good day or a win because he won the Coke 600 in 2017. And in other years, he's just did nothing. And really, hasn't that been Austin Dillon over his career? So we really don't know what to expect from Dillon, but I much prefer taking a chance on him at 150-1. Sometimes he's 50-1, 60-1. I'm getting 150-1 here. So I'm willing to take advantage of that because I don't think that 30 in practice today was a true number. And he's coming off a good run at Watkins Glen too. So he's got a little bit of confidence coming in here. And so I think he is a solid long shot play, and I think he's a really good idea you need to consider in fantasy. AJ Allmendinger, he came out of absolutely nowhere last year. Nowhere. He didn't have any sort of history at the racetrack. Then he has a great weekend. 5th in qualifying, 3rd in practice, and he was 4th in the race. So where that came from, nobody knows. He was 7th at the Watkins Glen race, so he does have also maybe a little bit of confidence coming in, and he's a big number at 250-1. But the problem is he was 23rd in practice, and that takes away any of the other possibilities that I could possibly make excuses for with AJ. Do I think he's a decent long shot? Sure, why not? Look what he did last year. And again, he's coming off a decent finish at Watkins Glen, which is not a big surprise, but look, he's 250-1. Okay, next up, let's go to the contenders. And like I said, this is a big list. Okay, so that's why I had to shrink the names here, but there's a lot of them. All right, so there's Denny Hamlin. So he's the favorite at 4-1, but just like Tyler Reddick, I cannot take Denny Hamlin at 4-1. I also don't like the fact, keep this in mind, Denny when you see him at like even Dover at the All-Star race, it was so predictable. Matter of fact, I asked CJ about it before he left, what he thought, what to look at. Should we look at just Dover numbers? He said yes. Well, that's the reason why Denny Hamlin was the favorite and the reason why you should take Denny Hamlin. Goes out and wins the race. So Denny can go to tracks and he has 3 or 4 wins or more, and that's a great track for Denny. And he should be the favorite of the race if he's having a good year and things are going well. He does not have that type of a record here. He's got 1 win, 1 in 34 races at Charlotte. Okay. Now, has he been good here? Yes, he's been solid. He's got 12 of them. The finishes are top 5s. That's strong. In the next gen, he's led 15 or more laps in 3 of the 4 races. That's good. Last year, he was 16th, started 20th, led 53 laps. He was 4th fastest in practice. In 2024, he finished 5th. He was 11th in qualifying, 15th in practice. So what did I find out there? Well, I mean, I guess you look at his practice speed today, he was 12th. So it's nothing fantastic. Look, it's 4-1. I just can't take you. I can't take you at 4-1. So really, this is why I said before, this is actually a good betting race and a good fantasy race because there's 2 overwhelming favorites who have a combined 1 win here in their career. All right? We know they could both win. We know that Reddick and Hamlin are like the 2 best drivers right now in the series this season. Okay, all that's understood. But 1 win combined. That's 1 win in a combined 41 races between the 2 drivers. And I just think it's not worth it. I don't see the value. If I were to take one of the 2 drivers, interesting. I might go with Reddick just because he's had such a big year. But I don't know. It'd be tough to tell you the truth. If I had to choose, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. If none of you guys have a dog in play between Hamlin and Reddick, let me know who you would pick because it's a tough call. Okay. Now let's go through because there's only one other driver here that's in single digits. 2 of them, actually. They're coming up. But before that, we've got a couple of interesting long shots, Ryan Preece and Daniel Suarez. Suarez has just been really good lately, and he's driving as best consistently as he has in a while. So, it's that's the reason why I put him early on in the process as a long shot play. I just think he's got 4 top 13s in his last 5. So that's very consistent. And what I also think that might work for him now I'm not picking him. Okay. Even though it was my long shot a week and a half ago, he's not going to be like, I wouldn't pick him today. I just don't see enough. I've got other options. But anyway, the other one is Ryan Preece. And Preece was 9th last year, and he has 8 top 14s in his last 9. So he's also being very consistent. So he's also someone to keep an eye on. But neither driver has any sort of tremendous history here at the track. Now, Chase Elliott is getting 14-1. And this was my top play when we talked last week. And I don't mind at all that Chase had a slow day today. Because if you take a look at Chase in his history at this track, he does not have great Saturdays. He doesn't need them. And all we're going to do is take a look like last year. He qualified 22nd. He was 12th in practice. So basically no top 10s. And he finished 6th. The year before that, he started 5th, but he was 31st in practice. And he finished 7th. Now, he had problems the other 2 years, but I don't need to go into that because when you have problems, you have problems. It happens. But the previous 6 races, pre-next gen, 3.6 average. 3.6. That's 1 win, 3 runner-ups in a 6-race span at Charlotte. And he's never won the Coke 600 yet. even though he's got to win in 2020. So I just look, we've had a good year with Chase. I think we hit him in both of his wins this year. So I just have a good vibe going with Chase, and I just feel that, you know, he's being a little bit disrespected here, just because he had a slow day today. Matter of fact, Hendrick had a slow day today, but it's still Chevy, and I think they're going to be fine. It's a long race. I think they'll figure it out, and I love the fact that I'm getting value at 14-1. Now you've got two 8-1 shots here, Larson and Bell. And Larson, look, he is in a bad rut. Everybody knows it. We've just been all over it here for weeks. Just can't take the guy right now. He's just, because you're not getting any value from him. He's still, 8-1. And this is a guy that just sort of like Hamlin, but Hamlin's had a lot more races. But Larson's got just one win and only 2 top 5s in his career at this racetrack in 15 races. His average result here is 19th. What are we talking about here? He's 8-1. The last 2 years in next gen, 37th and 30th. And the year before that, 9th. His practice speed was good here, 6th, but that he was 6th 2 years ago when he finished 30th. It doesn't look like at this point in time. I don't know if it's confidence or what it is, but there's something not right. Now look, they have time to figure it out, but right now, it's not going well. His last 3 results this year, 23rd, 34th, and 40th. And then you have Christopher Bell, a much better option at 8-1. I don't even think there's a tough choice here. So if you look at Bell, he has raced here 7 times. He's got the win a couple of years ago. And his average starting position is 6.2. His average finish is 9.5. So, not great, but it's still good because they're both in the top 10. 8th last year, 1 in 2024, led 90 laps. Had a bad result in 2023, still led 48 laps. And 5th in the first next gen in 2022. Last 5 races, though, and this is the thing that concerns me the most. Last 5 races this year, no top 15s. 24.6 average. It is not going well right now for Christopher Bell. They are not dialed in. And I think it's a big ask to go from that to go out and win one of the big races of the year. I just think it's a big ask. And I'm not getting any value here. He wasn't going to be a low number. He was going to be, I think this was going to be the best you could have thought. And yet he's done nothing for almost 2 months. So again, I don't think I'm getting any value here. But the good thing is, in fantasy, he's a good option because you're starting 17th. So I don't think he's a good bet, but I think he's a good fantasy option because I'd be shocked if he doesn't wind up with a good top 10 or top 5 finish. I just think it's still going to ask an awful lot to go from that to winning, but I think he's a good fantasy option. I'd much rather do that than put any money down on them at 8-1. And let's see. So we do have somebody, DMC Putz is going to take Reddick over Hamlin. Okay, we got one. And let's see. Another comment from the same viewer. Good for fantasy. No, again, I think here's the reason why I don't like him for fantasy this year. And I see where you're coming from, but the reason why I wouldn't pick him, first of all, we're going to get into it. There's just so many other options, and he's expensive. Secondly, I don't like the fact that when you take a look at his history, we just got to take a look at the results, which I already went over with you. So if you're expecting the laps, if you're expecting him to come in here and do what he's done before, like lead laps, well, consider this. He led 34 laps last year, but he started second. He led 51. Now this is one that would work. He led 51 laps 3 years ago, and he started 36. All right, so that's a good one. But he is generally what you need to do here is lead laps, because I don't see because the way he's going right now, I don't have any hope that he's going to even finish in the top 10. So you'd have to feel like he's going to wind up finishing in the top 5, lead some laps, and contend for a win. And if you think that, then take him, because he is starting 18th, and that'll be a good fantasy play. But you'd have to have a lot of faith that all these positive things are going to happen to him when he has not had anything positive happen to him lately. I mean, we were just at the track in Texas, right, a couple of weeks ago, where he just dominated that track, gobbling up laps left and right. Nothing. Did absolutely nothing. So I just think there's other options. But, again, if you like him and you think he's going to pull that off, then, hey, by all means. Okay, now let's go with some other drivers here. And let's start, first of all, with some of the other top contenders. You got Carson Hocevar, who is 12-1. I can't imagine Carson is going to win a second race all of a sudden so quickly. So I'd definitely be a little bit apprehensive about that. And I'm not going to jump through hoops and get excited about the fact that he's second in practice. Why? Because he was first in practice last year, and it didn't really help. So if you look at it, he was first in practice last year and still ended up with a really bad car. He had engine problems. It was not a good day. And the year before that, he just did not have a good race at all. So that would be the one thing that would concern me. On the good side, he's 23rd. So I think that if you can, and he's not bad as far as his salary cap. So he's an option, but I just think there's some other options out there. So I tell you what, I would much rather take him in fantasy, though, than to risk, because 12-1, that's a little low for me. And we've already gone through several other drivers, the 8-1s, the 12-1s, the 14-1s. There's a lot of them out there, a lot of choices. And I just don't think this would be a good week for Hocevar to win the race. Okay. And then you have Byron. Now, Byron, I think, is a great value, a tremendous value, a great fantasy play, and also somebody you should consider to just win the race. Now, I'm a lot more into him to be on my fantasy team, because he is getting this glorious starting position of 31st, which we know if he really would have qualified here, based on his qualifying experience here, he would be more than likely in the top 5. In the last 3 years, he started 3rd, 2nd, and pole. He led 283 laps last year. He led 49 laps in 2024, led 91 laps in 2023. Okay, and if you take a look, his practice speeds were pretty strong. And his practice speed here today was okay. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. It's just okay. It was average. It was 14th. So nothing to scare me, and nothing where I'm like, oh yeah, I know for a fact he's going to win the race. He's the man. But he's clearly should have been the top choice, or one of the top choices, which is why CJ picked him as his number 1 pick. Last week, I might have taken him as well. CJ had the top pick at the time. But one thing that bothers me, we talked about it with Christopher Bell, is that William Byron does not have a top 5 in his last 5 races. And he only has 2 this year. And believe it or not, and it's really surprising, but William Byron does not have a win this year. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind. William Byron has 2 top 5s and no wins this year. All right, and we're starting 31st, and it's 10-1. So that's why I'd much rather play him in fantasy, because I feel pretty strong that he'll end up getting really far up in the race compared to if he would have, let's say, by some freak way, he would have started fourth in this race. Well, that would not have excited me as much. In fantasy, you would have just been, okay, good. I would have felt pretty strongly about it, definitely. But now I get to take a driver who could easily end up still leading 50 laps or 100 laps tomorrow, and he's 31st. So there's a lot to like about that with William Byron. I'm much willing to take a chance on a driver in that situation in fantasy, though, than I would, especially at 10-1. But hey, you know what? I still think he's a solid play overall in every aspect. Okay, now we go to the long shots from this group. And Eric Jones is one of them. I think he's a really good one. Who else? We've got Keselowski has some good things about him. Chastain does. Bowman does. Stenhouse is an excellent option in fantasy. We're going to get to that, as is Josh Berry. And I would definitely forget about Joey Logano. I just don't think that, even though he's starting 35th, we've got other options back here in fantasy to choose from, where I don't have to take Logano. Logano has he hasn't had a top 5 at Charlotte in his last 7 trips. Next gen average 18th. So, and he's only led 9 laps in his last 5 races at Charlotte. Okay, let's get to fantasy. And so here is my official, it's my official lineup for today. So again, and I still might make a couple of moves. The one I might make is Blaney, okay, because he's starting 6th. So I really need him to lead laps if he's going to be starting 6th. So he is someone that, again, it could be because of the fact that he does have the wrecks and the win. If he winds up in one of those situations where he gets into another wreck, well, that can blow up in your face. So I'm thinking about some other potential options. Salary-wise, that would give me 10-4. So I would still be able to, maybe, replace him with Bell. I might do that because Bell is starting 17th. We went over his numbers. The only thing, again, with Bell, though, is things have not gone well for Christopher Bell lately, and I don't like that. So that's part of the reason why I've gone with Blaney here to start. Also, if I'm thinking about some others, see, the problem is I don't really like anybody else other than I'd have to go down here at this level. Maybe Ty Gibbs. That would be somebody I'd consider. But that's about it. Not at that price range. It's a big price range. And again, I'm not going to go with Reddick or Hamlin. I mean, if I could, I'd probably, in fantasy, I would probably go with Reddick, even though Hamlin will be able to make up 10 more spots. But Hamlin is on the pole, so he's going to get an opportunity, potentially lead a bunch of laps early. Either Gibbs or Reddick will have that opportunity. And whoever gets off to the good start on that first lap. Now, who knows? Because nobody really qualified, the way things go, and maybe we'll see a lot of volatility in the first 15 laps. Maybe we'll see some changes. That's why Charlotte's been a good track. It's not boring, but just in case it is, just in case everybody's a little bit no qualifying, we're going to be a little bit careful here. Maybe everybody also is a little bit stressed out with everything that's gone on lately, and they just want to get to the first stage or whatever. You might see that driver who gets off to the lead might be able to gobble up some laps. So if I was choosing Reddick or Hamlin for fantasy, that's the reason I'd probably go with Reddick. All right. And then here you've got some other really good, let's just shoot down to all of these bargains. Okay. So I would start right here. Here's, well, again, Shane. The good thing about it is 6,000. All right. But starting 3rd, if you're not going to lead laps and you're not going to finish in the top 5 or 10, which I still think is a big ask for SVG in this race on this racetrack, it's not going to help you. So you got better options, and here's one of them. Let me just make sure. But yeah, here's one of them because I had him originally on my roster, but I had to take him off because I needed to. What I did late was I wanted to get Briscoe in there, but I needed to find a way to get some more money, and that's why I added Gilliland, but I had to knock out Berry. So what I like about Berry is take a look at Berry's 2 races here. He's raced here twice. He was 12th last year, started 18th, and his practice run was 31st. In 2024, he finished 10th, started 13th, and his practice speed was 21st. So he did not have good practice runs, all right? And his qualifying situation, they were both in the top 20. And he ended up, let's see, he ended up picking up 6 spots and 3 spots in both races. Now, 2 other reasons to like him. He's got an O'Reilly win here. And remember, if you were with us last year, was it, I think, when I picked Josh Berry as a long shot at 100-1 at Vegas, I think it was. A couple of reasons, but I believe one of them, if I'm not mistaken, I think he had a win in Las Vegas in O'Reilly. But I also knew he was a hometown kid and all that. But it wasn't like he had some great history there in the Cup Series, though, from my recollection. But Berry has success here in the O'Reilly Series, which is important. It's not again, different cars, different teams, but it does help. Okay, if anything, it helps. It doesn't hurt. But the other thing is you've got a driver that has not had. Look, he hasn't had the season everybody thought he would. After a win last year, there's a lot of expectation Josh Berry was going to take another step this season. It's gone the opposite. Okay, I get that. That's why he's a big number at 250-1, which I think is outrageous. But throw in the fact that, like I said, he's got those 2 practice speeds of 31st and 31st and 21st, and today he was 10th. So that's a good sign. So he's been faster here today than he was the 2 years prior when he finished 10th and 12th. All right, so that's the reason why I really wanted him on my fantasy team. So if you can fit him, I think he would be a really good fantasy choice. Also, again, I was going to consider Suarez. He's 6,700. Same thing with Priest, but he's a little bit too expensive for me considering the other options I have. Now, Chastain, consider that you have a driver that, yeah, even though he kind of stole the win, he only led a few laps late to win the race when he started 40th. The fact is if you look at in the last 2 years, he's got a win, and he also has an 8th place finish. And now he's led 8 laps and 10 laps, 18 laps in both races too. So not a whole lot. But what we're talking about here is we're talking about a driver that is 7,600 in the salary cap, which is not that expensive. And take a look at, where do I have it? Here we go. Nope, that's not it. Bring back the board here. So we have a driver that will be starting 27th, and his practice speed was 17th. So that's a little bit concerning because his practice speeds the last 2 years in those good races were 9th. So he was 9th and 9th. Here he's 17th. And look, he won last year. He stole the race again. I don't think he's going to win the race. I'm not going that way. But he's not a bad idea considering he is starting 27th, and he does have a good, decent history here lately. Bowman is starting 29th, so you can gobble up some spots there. The only thing is I think he's a really good option. I do. It's just that at 7,800, I just think that there are other options I can go with, and he's sort of those drivers in the middle of the salary cap. It's just so difficult to go with sometimes because you want to take good drivers, so you're going to take a couple of expensive drivers. Then you really need to be taking some bargain drivers. And sometimes you may have like one driver left that you can really take in the middle. Like, who do I have in the middle? I don't have anybody in the middle. See, sometimes you're able to do like I did. You're able to go with 4 really good drivers and two long shots. Now, the long shots are very necessary, as we know. every week when you're trying to win these contests or just trying to make some money in them. But yeah, this is why it's tough to go with those middle of the road drivers in your fantasy contest. But I do think that Bowman is a good option if you can. Let's just say somehow you've got $8,000 left, and you're trying to look for the best driver. I think he's definitely one of them. Just if you're looking for the best driver, not looking for anything else. And look here, in his 5 races, the last 5 at Charlotte, all. Yes, did he have a good year, race last year? No, he was 29th. That was his worst. But the 4 previous results were all in the top 12. So that's pretty strong. All right. So, and here's the other thing, though. And this is the reason why qualifying would have helped. Out of those 5 races I talked about, where 4 of them were in the top 12, he started in the top 10 in 4 of them. So I really can't tell. So that's why that kind of blows. But he's starting 29th, so maybe he would have had a top 10 car, because the history lately for Bowman is I'm going to qualify in the top 10. All right, so if that would have happened and he would have had another top 12, then picking him here starting 29th would be a good idea. And I don't think he's the worst idea in the world either at 35-1. All right. And then Keselowski. All right. So, Keselowski every week is always going to be a pretty decent fantasy option, especially because he just hasn't been qualifying well. But check this out. The last 2 years, he's finished 5th and 2nd, okay, in this race. And he's qualified 35th and 30th in this race. And his practice speeds, though, were 13th and 14th. So his practice speeds were in the middle, the results were really good, and the qualifying was not good at all. And here he goes this week because of the metric, and he's starting 26th. And again, he is CJ's second pick this week. And then the other thing is, well, really, if you just put all the numbers together, his average start is 16.9, his average finish is 13.6. So that's good. Back-to-back top 5s coming in is good. He's got 2 wins here in his career, which is good. 7 top 5s in his career overall. So the only thing is that I'd be a little bit apprehensive about is the fact that he practiced 32nd. That is the reason why I just can't put him in here. If he would have practiced like he has the last 2 years, that would have been a sign right there that, okay, it's all looking like it should. But he was really slow today. And let's see. I know he's had some good moments this year, but the last 3 races, matter of fact, if you look at it, the last 6 races, he only has 1 top 10. And in his last 3 races, he's finished 30th and 31st in 2 of them. So maybe not the time to take Keselowski this week. Moving up, I think that's about it. Oh, we still have my guys, Stenhouse. Okay, I think he's a given. 5,900. That is great. That's exactly what you want. And Stenhouse should be now the thing is I would think there'd be a lot of people who are going to take Stenhouse. So you might consider that. I'd be surprised if anybody didn't. I mean, how could you not take Stenhouse in your contest this week? So that's the thing where, because what you always want to do, not always, but what you want to consider a lot of these contests is you want to consider to not go with a golfer or a driver that you feel everyone else is going to go with for whatever reason. Because if you don't go with him and you roll the dice and everybody's got him and he doesn't do well, then you've got the advantage. So you have to consider that. But I just can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to take him. He's 32nd, so you get a bonus there. Take a look at the fact that in the next gen, he's been 11th or better in 3 of his 4 races. Okay. Last year, when he finished 11th, he was 11th in practice and 11th in qualifying. So where did he practice today? First. In 2024, he had a slow weekend in practice, qualifying, and the result. So I like that because basically what it's saying is sort of like what I said at the very beginning of the report. Go with who looks like they're fast on the weekend and take him in the race. That sort of way to now, because it may sound simple, but it's not as simple as it sounds. So I just think that for that reason, he has to be a really good play this week. All right. Gilliland. Now, Gilliland, if you take a look at him, I mean, he's usually also a pretty decent fantasy option. This week is no different. In the next gen, he's got an average starting position of 33rd and average finish of 21st. So he's gaining 12 spots. And if you take a look at it, last year, he was really bad on Saturday. He was slow on practice and slow both in the 30s. And he still finished 18th. And the year before that, he was 35th in qualifying and 24th in practice, and he still finished in the top 20. So he was slow in both practice and qualifying. Matter of fact, in the last 4 sessions in 2 years here, he's been 27th, 34th, 33rd, and 35th. And he's finished 17th and 18th. And today, he gets the 20th spot. That's the only thing that sucks. We wanted, because it was luck, so it would have been great if he was 30th, but it's 20th. And so when you see the fact that he was 37th in practice, it doesn't mean anything. Okay, but the thing that initially I stayed away from, because like I said, I didn't have him in there. I had to put him in there because I moved Briscoe in there, is just because of the fact that he is starting 20th. And his other results were 18th, 17th. So if he has another 18th, 17th, because he really didn't do anything like better in practice, like if he would have had a 20th in practice, that would have said, oh, he's a little bit more faster now. So now I think he can maybe finish in the top 12. But he didn't. He practiced like he has here the last few years. And if he winds up finishing 18th, I don't get anything out of it. So look, that's still something that I'm still going to consider. Like I said, with Blaney, Gilliland, I have some other options I might be throwing in there. Briscoe, Byron, Elliott, Blaney. We've talked about the rest of them. Let me see if I've left anybody out of note. Let's see. John Hunter Nemechek, where is he? Let's go down here. There he is. John Hunter Nemechek was runner-up in his last appearance in O'Reilly in 2023, leading 57 laps. He was 10th at Watkins Glen. Never had a top 10 here, though. Gregson was 10th in this race last year, started 8th, practiced 16th, but he only practiced 31st today, which is the reason why I did not consider him. Let me see if I have anybody else as far as the long shots. I think that Jones. I don't think I mentioned Eric Jones. Jones is also a very good option. Where's Jones? Eric Jones. Where is he? There he is. 6,600. A really good option. Eric Jones. The only thing I'm a little bit concerned with is just like Gilliland, his starting position being 21st. I wish I had a little bit further back, because his average start is 28th. So that's where I would have wanted him, because he's like Gilliland. His average finish is 19.5. This is next gen. Because he's never led a lap here in his career. Just has 1 top 10 in his career. And if you take a look at it, he finished 13th last year, and he had the 6th fastest practice. 19th in 2024 was his result, and he was 16th in practice. So 6th and 16th in practice, 13th and 19th in the results. And he ended up 9th in practice today, which is a good sign. All right. But I don't need him to finish 19th. Or, 13th even wouldn't be all that great. I need him to finish in the top 10. And that's why, look, I think if you need to take someone in that area, like a Gilliland, at 5,300, just again, taking a look, I have to go, look, Jones is 66. So that's why I look, I didn't have the option, but that's why it was easy for me to just throw Gilliland in there. Matter of fact, in this area here, I think Gilliland is the easiest choice. If you're taking a look at anybody that is 5,700 or less, I don't even think it's a discussion in my mind. None of these drivers look like, I mean, I guess if I was going to pick one other driver, I would probably consider Herbst, just because he's shown a little bit of something this year and he's starting 30th. That's it. But I think he'll land in this area here is definitely the way to go. Okay. And I think that's it. I think we've covered it all. So let me go through. We're going to wrap it up. Just going to have the final drivers. Where did I put all that stuff? There it is. The final drivers. These are all the drivers that I'm considering, or look, bet-wise, and I'm not talking about Tuesday of last week. I'm just saying right now, today, based on what we see, I'm still looking at Blaney. I'm looking at Elliott. I would look at Byron and Bell. Those would be as far as the top drivers. Oh, and Briscoe. Okay. So those, and again, I've already got Elliott. I've already got Briscoe. So the new driver that I'm putting in there would be Blaney. And I like Blaney over Bell. Just talking about picks, not fantasy. I'm getting a little bit better, getting 12 to 1 instead of 8 to 1. And I don't like the way Bell's gone lately. So now with the fantasy and combination, you want to put a few bucks. I think McDowell at 66 to 1. Absolutely. He's proven he can get top 10s here. He's coming off maybe the best race he's ever had outside of a win a couple of weeks ago. And he looked really good today. And you're getting 66 to 1. And then the long shots that I would not, that I'm not just looking at fantasy, that I can see, yeah, I could see them actually winning as a long shot, would be Stenhouse and Berry. Out of all the long shots we talked about, and there's a lot of them, Stenhouse and Berry. And the reason, again, Berry's got the 2 good finishes here. He's won this race in the O'Reilly. And so a lot of similarities that I felt with his win in Vegas. And then Stenhouse just seems to be, this is what you get out of Ricky Stenhouse every year. He seems to perform well. Let's just put it this way, if he's going to perform well, he's going to perform well in the super speedways, Daytona, Atlanta, Talladega. That's where he's going to do well. And you take a look at his history at Charlotte. He's been pretty good here over his career in certain spurts, especially in next gen. And what did he do this year? Stenhouse? Well, he's got his only 2 top 10s this year are at, I think it's at Daytona, and I think it's at Atlanta. No, Talladega. 6th at Talladega, 2nd Daytona. So right there, he's doing what he normally does. And that's why, hey, if I'm going to have, here's the track that I usually do good at, Charlotte. So that's another reason. And then, yeah, so anyway, those are just those are my top long shot drivers that I would consider to win the races. If I had to take a top pick right now, a top 1 pick, I'd probably take Chase Briscoe. That's probably what I would do. But again, I still like Briscoe. I still like Elliott. I like Blaney. And then Bell and Byron I like. I just don't like how they've been performing lately. That scares me a little bit at the odds. Okay, so that is going to wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in. Oh yeah, Andrew. Just want to throw that in there. Yeah. I completely agree with you regarding the long race. I will say this, though, and that is the fact that I think he has proven this year to be a different driver. He's got the win. It's sort of like the natural progression, the maturity of a driver. He's shown that. But can he do it still? It's a long race. I hear you. I'm not picking him, so I'm not going down that road. Is it because it's a long race? It doesn't help. I'll admit that. But I just think it's still really hard for a first-time winning driver, a young driver, after they've won, to come back and win again so quickly. It's just hard to do. And then to ask him to do it at a long race like this, it's just asking a lot. And we talked about it. He was fast last year in practice, and it didn't help him. So I'm not going to get persuaded by his fast look today. And the other thing, too, about McDowell, I remember saying, is that he did have the fastest 10-lap average. So anybody out there thinking about McDowell, that's another one that really helps should help you make your decision on that one. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. Yeah, let us know what you think. More comments, the more questions. Let us know who you're going to pick, all that stuff. If you have any other questions regarding any of these fantasy drivers, any of these, right here, let us know. And we're going to be back on Tuesday. Tuesday is our regular day. And you can check out the link in the description. You can go and hear what CJ and I had to say about all of the drivers I just talked about. Obviously, it was a week and a half ago, but it's still, we went all over history of these drivers at this track, how they've been racing. We didn't have to worry about another race because the All-Star race doesn't count. So everything we talked about on Tuesday, a week from this past Tuesday, is the same. We just don't have odds, and that's it. Okay, so you can check that out, and we'll be back on Tuesday. CJ's coming back from his vacation, so we'll be back to get right back on the horse. We'll spend some time talking about Kyle. Just quickly, he was my favorite driver. I started paying attention to NASCAR in the year 2000. So I knew nothing about the sport. The only reason I even got into the sport was because I had a show in the South Florida radio market at the Pete Rose Ballpark Cafe in Boca Raton, Florida. So where Pete Rose did his show, he had a built-in studio at the restaurant. He wasn't there anymore, so we were able to use it. And so we were there every day. And so we had a sponsor, an alcoholic sponsor. I think it was a beer sponsor. And the rep for the company was a big NASCAR fan. And so we were able to get him to not only, how sometimes you'll see a sponsor and he sits down and he talks to you for a couple of minutes. Well, we had a sponsor since he was a big NASCAR guy, and I didn't know nothing about NASCAR, and neither did my co-host. So we brought him in, and he was talking all about NASCAR, and he was the NASCAR expert. We were like, hey, let's just have this guy talk more about NASCAR as much as we can. And we set it up where we would be able to go on the road. Matter of fact, we went to, I don't know if you remember, at Daytona. I don't even know what they have there right now, but there used to be what was the name of the restaurant they used to have there? What was it called? I can't remember the name now. I don't know why. Anyway, there was a restaurant that was right next to the track, and it's no longer, they no longer have these restaurants, I think. I think they're completely out of business, or they were bought over or whatever. Anyway, so he obviously in the beer business, whatever, he had a way where we could end up doing the show right there, and we did. So we did several shows there at the restaurant, which meant that I was able to go to the race, and we had tickets, comp tickets to the race. I was able to go into the suite for, it was Budweiser. That's right, it was Budweiser. How about that? We had a Budweiser rep working for us. So we went to the Budweiser suite, and that was awesome. So I got to experience everything about Daytona for the first time in the Bud Suite. And yeah, so I got really hooked on it. And so it took me a few years to learn and try to, I was going to force being a fan of a driver. But once I started to become a fan of the sport, then it wasn't too hard for me to pick Kyle. So Kyle was exactly what I like about, as far as personality. I just love, especially when he was driving at that time, at his heyday. Just absolutely loved his personality, and I thought it was great. He was funny, and so yeah, that was the time when I was a big Kyle Busch fan, and then about, I don't know what it was, about 6 years ago or so, Ryan Blaney came into the picture, and all of a sudden it was, I don't know, NASCAR is a little bit different for me as a fan compared to teams. Being a fan of a team, it just is, because it's one person compared to a whole team. And again, I didn't grow up a NASCAR fan. It wasn't like I was a fan for 50 years. This was because you can't be a fan of a player or a driver for 50 years. So it's a little bit different. And also, it was just one of those things where you can only have one driver win. And so it was natural for me to start looking for the next driver I was going to start rooting for. And that's who I picked. I picked Ryan Blaney. And so the last, 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden Kyle is no longer at the top. Still does not mean I'm not his fan. It's just that all of a sudden, Ryan's coming into the picture, and now Ryan, all of a sudden, the last few years, is winning championships and driving in championships, and so it might have seemed like in the last 4 years, especially if nobody knows me earlier than 3 or 4 years, that's all I ever liked was Ryan Blaney. But no, that was not the case. I was always a Kyle Busch fan first for many years, and then brought Ryan Blaney into the fold. And then he was always on, front and center because he was the man at this time over the last few years. And I was really, really disappointed that Kyle could not get back into it. Just figured he would. Just didn't understand, how can you have equipment like this for Kyle Busch? I don't know what was going on. And then it just, when it looked like the crew chief switch, that maybe is what he needed, he actually started to couple top tens, and maybe that was it. And CJ picked him as his official long shot. So yeah, we're all really, really upset. And what's also upsetting is the fact that Kyle would have been so good in the booth. I don't think there's a doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that Kyle would have went to the booth. And I think Kyle would have been there for 20 years. And we could have had 2 more decades of Kyle. And we got robbed of that. So, but, considering what we got robbed at compared to his family is just not even close. So, what we can do now is see how, just root for his. I'm going to root for his son. I ain't going to put any pressure on the kid, that's for sure. But I hope he has a good career. That'd be great, because that's as a father, that's what you think. That's what it's all about. Not that you're not going to love your kid if he doesn't become a top athlete in the sport where you were a top athlete. But it's just the whole idea of it is what makes having a child worth it even more. And so with him being here, it sure would be awesome if his son turns out to have a good career in NASCAR. Keep his name alive. That would be great. So anyway, we'll talk more about it on Tuesday with CJ, because keep in mind, CJ is the man. He's a RotoWire.com fantasy award-winning writer. He is the main analyst here on our NASCAR coverage. Also for F1. We haven't talked a lot of F1 this year. They shut it down for a month, as you know. So we just really haven't been able to get anywhere in the new car they have. And it's just crazy what's going on there. So we really stayed away from it. But we did talk about it before he left, because he did say that he thinks right now the McLaren drivers and Max should start to get to a point now where they should be contending, meaning it's going to now be a pretty good time to start betting on F1, because now you're going to have some decent, because usually, as you know, F1, you can't make any money in F1. Now you can, if you do it right with winning the championship. And if you haven't been with us a couple of years ago, we made up really big with everything that happened with SVG a couple of years ago. So that was a really good, because that was a time when, well, we're not going to go into it, but the fact is, I think Vegas is not caught up with F1, with the championship and the points and the realistic way that drivers can win a championship or not based on the points. And I just don't think they, and representative of the last couple of years, the way that they posted their championship odds haven't really made a lot of sense. So you can actually, so that's how you can make money on F1. And I can imagine this year, with so many potential drivers being in contention for a championship, it should be really interesting, and even more so with maybe winning some races. So we'll start talking more about F1 soon, but I'm only going to really do it if there's a way to make some money, because you know, it's just, to me, it's just not NASCAR. I love NASCAR. I don't love F1, and I love everything about NASCAR, because everything about NASCAR is America. Everything about F1 is not America. So I'm out of here. Have a great rest of your Memorial Day weekend, and I'm glad we're able to do this live on a Saturday night. Not a whole lot going on in the world of sports, unless you're into hockey and the NBA, I guess. So I'm glad we're able to do this. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and don't forget, we do this every Saturday. If there's a race on Sunday, we do it every Saturday. Anytime in the afternoon or the evening, depending on when the qualifying, really it's when the odds come out. As soon as the odds come out, I do the show, usually not too much longer after that. So keep that in mind. Also on Proline TV tomorrow, I'm sure you guys are not horse racing fans, most of you, if you're NASCAR fans, but it is racing. So we have a special show tomorrow at 3 o'clock. We're going to talk about horse racing in Santa Anita. It's Memorial Day weekend, so there's some big racing this weekend. Usually we do a horse racing show on Thursday for Saturday's races, but this week with Memorial Day, there's big racing at Santa Anita on Monday, so we decided to do a Sunday show for Monday racing. So we'll be doing a show tomorrow at 3 o'clock live right here on Proline TV. That's with John Hardoon of the Ragas and Sheets. He's been a professional handicapper for thoroughbred racing for a long time, and it's a lot of fun. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. And then if you're into the NFL and college football, take a look at the link in the description of this video. Check out the R-Lads YouTube channel. That's where I do all of my NFL and college football interviews. And I have been piling them up. NFL, college football. Yeah, it's early, but post-spring interviews are important. Post-draft interviews are important. I'm going over all that stuff right now. And then we're going to do it all over again when we get to training camp for the NFL and college football in late July and August. But we are getting everybody a head start. And I've already given teams out there that I believe are really good bargains. If you want to place a bet on some teams, big numbers out there because it's real early. Win totals are out there now, of course, as well, because of the schedule being released in the NFL. So yeah, check out the link in the description of the video. You can go over to R-Lads, and trust me, it's 5 days a week. So every day that we do a show, anytime we do a show, I'm going to be interviewing somebody and somebody who represents a team that has their own channel, usually on YouTube, where they're a writer on a website. They follow their team in college or pro, So I go right to the source and get the expert opinion of that specific team. And there's a lot of good information. So these are good interviews. And if you're into football, check them out. Okay, so that will do it. I'm out of here. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Again, have a great Memorial Day weekend. And let's hope if there's any activity overseas, we'll kick some ass. And I'll see you guys real soon.